Welcome to this week's Word of the Week, where our word is rhythm. Now, a rhythm is the division of the pulse, so obviously we need to understand what a pulse is. And a pulse is when you've got separate strikes that are all the same distance between each other. So you can see here that none of these strikes of the pulse are any further or closer apart from each other as the last one. So let's have a listen to that. So you can hear that quite clearly. It's going to keep going on and on. We've represented that in the sheet music by using just constant quarter notes. And you wouldn't necessarily have this played by an instrument. It could be. It might be played by, for example, the hi-hat of a drum kit. But it would generally be something you feel underneath the music, something that's where the rhythms and the melodies of music are derived from. So let's look at a specific rhythm. In this case, we've put it in red above the pulse. We've kept the pulse going. And in the sheet music, we've got the stems of the pulse going down, but the stems of the rhythm going up. And you can see that the amount of space between each rhythm, each strike in the rhythm, is different. We might have it where there's occasionally the same amount, but overall this rhythm changes as it goes along. So let's have a listen to that. So again, you can hear that the pulse is being divided up. We wouldn't have to keep this pulse being played, but the fact that it's there makes it really clear to us that we're dividing up that pulse to create our rhythm. So we would represent each of the different note lengths within a rhythm using a symbol and a fraction. So the first symbol we'd look at is a whole note, which obviously has the fraction of 1/1, and that's just a circle that hasn't been filled in and hasn't got a stem coming off it. You can fit two half notes into one whole note, obviously, standard maths applies, and a half note is a circle that hasn't been filled in with a stem coming off that. So two half notes going into one whole note. Within one whole note, you can fit four quarter notes, which look very similar to a half note, but the circle is filled in and the stem goes away from the circle again. So four quarter notes fitting within one whole note. Within them, we can fit two eighth notes within each one. So obviously that's eight eighth notes within a whole note. Now they often are drawn together like this, but they don't have to be. If we were to ungroup this picture here and delete the second one, a single eighth note would look just like this. But it often ends up looking quite messy if we've got our eighth notes put together like that, so we tend to tie them across the top. So each one of these here, the circle with the tail coming off the stem, each one of these is the eighth note. These are two eighth notes together. So within that, we can fit a set of 16th notes. So within each eighth note, we've got 2 16ths. Within each quarter note, we've got 4 16ths. And obviously within the whole note, we've got 16 16ths. And again, we tied the stems together to make it a bit neater. So if we ungroup again, we can see how that would actually look if we were to have a single 16th note. So I'll just delete these. We would have the stem of the note with two tails coming off it there. So it would look much more like this as an individual 16th note, but you can already see how messy that would start to look if we were to keep drawing out each one separately. Oh dear, that's all gone wrong. Let's delete that one. Here we go. So obviously it's much neater and tidier to join all of these together. So that's a 16th note. We call this a rhythm tree when we're looking at them laid out like this, and it just gives it a really clear understanding of how each type of note's divided up. So we've got 16ths, eighths, quarters, halves, and whole notes. And this will make it much easier when you understand time signatures in next week's Word of the Week. So, this week's word has been rhythm, which is a division of the pulse.